Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this very special Graphicsly event for this Clip Studio Paint workshop. We have partnered up with the amazing WEBTOON team to share with you how to create webtoons from start to finish. Another 5 artists will present across 2 days their specific topic on creating webtoons from start to finish. We're excited to learn with you. Before we start, we have some housekeeping items to go through. The session will be approximately 60 minutes long. Please use the pinned message in the chat to ask your questions to the presenter. Due to time constraints, we will probably not be able to answer all the questions, but we will try our best to go through as many as possible. Please respect the presenter during the presentation and only self-promote and exchange social media info during the commercial breaks. And all sessions will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube later on. This workshop is brought to you by Graphicsly, the official distributor of Clip Studio Paint in North America, South America, and Europe. And as a part of the Celsius Clip Studio Paint team, we are super happy to be part of this event, and we couldn't do it without our sponsors, WEBTOON and Wacom, and of course our fantastic partners at Graphicsly as well. Clip Studio Paint, just for those of you who don't know, is the leading app with all the features you need to create your comic series to be ready to be published on WEBTOON Canvas. WEBTOON is one of the largest digital comic platforms in the world with over 75 million monthly readers. WEBTOON Canvas is the site of the platform where any artist can post their personal stories and webcomics. Wacom is the global leader in the pen, display, and tablet market for creative users. As a technology company, they provide cutting-edge digital ink solutions for a wide range of partners using and producing smartphones, tablets, and digital stationery. About this session today and the presenter coming up. For this session, how a story is told, we have Drake, or Quirkilicious, who's the creator of ePRO, a webtoon series following the lives of young gamers. And he is a Canadian freelance illustrator who is known for his action character paintings. We invite him to talk about what inspires his panel shots and how he paces and breaks up scenes. Now I'll pass the session to Drake.
Hey everyone, I'm Drake, and this is my workshop on how a story is told, paneling, pacing, and flow. Yeah, I'm also the artist of ePRO. I write and draw that series on my own on WEBTOON Canvas. I just want to talk a bit about the series. I was working on a manga a few years ago, and that's why it started out in black and white, and I do my paneling too, and it's not exactly the same as the webtoon format, but I do have it formatted in a way where it's read up and down. And so I'm going to talk a bit about paneling. Right. So the first thing you want to do when you go from a script to your visual storytelling format, and when you do comics, is you want to establish a panel size hierarchy. This is the size of a full page for me for ePRO. And so my largest panel size is, well, I guess the full page, and I call that a full panel. And then the next size I use after that is a square, if I could find it on here. All right, there we go. A square. Simple. And then from there, I go to rectangles, which are great because I could fill 3 to a page like that. And then finally, I have the tiny half square. Oh, that was it. Okay, that was from something else. Ignore the sad crying anime face. Yeah, these are great too, just because I could fill 6 to a page. All sorts of crazy things like that. And obviously, I'm not restricted to these panel sizes. They're just kind of a basic guideline I have in my head when I'm thinking about how to break down the importance of scenes when I'm reading a script. All right, now that we have our 4 panel sizes, or my 4 panel sizes, I'm going to talk a bit about the types of shots that you use when you're storyboarding your scenes. These are going to be terms you use mostly in film, but I think all forms of visual storytelling share the same fundamentals, so it's fairly interchangeable to use these terms with comics as well. Alright, types of shots. So first I have the establishing shot, and it's basically the shot you use to establish a scene. It's great for transitioning from one environment to another. Let's say your character, is going to school and he goes home. Ideally, you want to establish both scenes with like a shot of the school, and at home you do a shot of the entire home. It's great for setting the tone as well if your series is very tone heavy. For example, you could make it raining or a sunny day or whatever, and that will help with the mood that you're trying to go for. So, yeah, for me, an establishing shot, I would probably use a full panel. The largest panel size you have in your hierarchy is probably what you want to use. I know for WEBTOON you can do really cool things where you scroll endlessly, and I've actually seen artists do really, really wide shots because people can just rotate their phones and they can keep scrolling forever, and you have dope establishing shot like that. So yeah, let's say I did an establishing shot, do a little city, you can do like a little highway, little cars. Don't worry, I can actually draw. This is not all a lie. I just but yeah, so this would be what I'd consider an establishing scene. Kind of just shows the cityscape. Maybe you could like add a gradient for mood. Yeah, I don't know. But I'm gonna go over to the first chapter of ePRO actually, just to show you I can draw. And here's an establishing scene from the first chapter. It's a large gaming coliseum with a huge crowd. Because this is the first chapter I ever did for WEBTOON, it's in only a square panel size, which isn't the largest size I have in my panel hierarchy. If I did this establishing shot now, though, I would probably use a full panel size just to be able to show all that information. Because look at all these like tiny crowds here, and there's like you can see the banners of the gaming teams, and there's like a crowd in the foreground cheering. It's a lot of information, and that's why you want to use your largest panel size to easily communicate all of that clearly to your readers. Now that we know what an establishing shot is, we're going to move on to the wide shot. Here, all this. There. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, okay. So for a wide shot, I might use a full panel size, but I would probably use a square in this instance, just because I think it's big enough and it's the second largest panel I use. Wide shots are great for showing your subject in relation to its surrounding. So if I drew a guy just chilling, I don't know, maybe he's lying in bed or something. Yeah. But then you can show, oh, his bed is in his bedroom, obviously. And he's got a little desk on the side. And he's got a lamp or a clock, I don't know, whatever. You can show like anime figures to kind of communicate what the guy's into. But yeah, that's a wide shot. It's the wide shots are also really good because it reminds the readers where the characters are, and you can set up interactions with the surrounding of the characters. So if he's about to pick up an object or about to trip over a rock, you can show the rock, all that good stuff. I love using wide shots, especially with dialogue, because you can show body language as well, but I'll talk more about that when I go into medium shots. Good example of a wide shot I use in the first chapter of ePRO is right here. I have both characters sitting on the bus having conversation. I use the square panel here, as I mentioned earlier. And this was really cool because I was able to set up this Easter egg of another character who interacts with the main cast later on down here. You see him eavesdropping in on them. So yeah, it's little things like that. Next we're going to talk about uh, medium shots. Yay! Medium shots are great, again, with dialogue to show body language. So while your character's talking, you kind of want to show also through just the way they're posed or what they're doing, the mood or emotion that they communicate through their dialogue. And I prefer this over close-ups of like just heads talking because it appears more natural. It feels more like you're a camera sitting in the setting, seeing them talk rather than, oh, it's a head talking, oh, it's a head talking, and you just have a bunch of panels of heads talking. Obviously, it's more work to do medium shots though, because you have to also put in background elements, so it doesn't look so empty. Here's a medium shot, also from chapter 1 of ePRO, and I was talking about body language, and here he's going, oh, I'm fucking dead, and he's kind of reeling back and flailing his arms. He's freaking out, and you can see all this exaggerated nonsense going on. And it's just to help communicate and drive your dialogue to have more expression. Now that we've covered medium shots, talk a bit about close-ups. So for close-ups, I commonly use rectangles or squares or but most of the time I use tiny squares just because it's such a small amount of information. And I think people use this the most for dialogue. And it's not terrible because you can show facial features. Oh, and this is why you saw that sad, crying anime face earlier. Because I was doing a dry run of this presentation. Um, mm, but yeah, if you have a huge part in your script that's a lot of dialogue, it's kind of unavoidable to do a lot of close-ups. And you might even be tempted to do exclusively close-ups. But I'll talk about this later in that you really need to have variety in your panels to keep visual interest. So that's a danger you want to avoid. Also, for close-ups though, they're great for dramatic effect. Like, let's say if I did a rectangle panel here, and you did the edgy, cool anime eye close-up, I'm gonna use the flip tool because I'm an artist and I'm lazy. Whoops. Yeah. Do a bunch of action lines. So yeah, that's an example of a dramatic close-up that isn't just people talking and dialogue. Let's see if I have an example in chapter 1 here. Oh yeah, so this is the end of the first chapter again, and he meets this attractive girl for the first time. So he's got like big giant heart eyes. He's clearly simping over her. And yeah, that's just what you use close-ups for, is awesome facial expressions. Mm. Now that we have our types of shots established, establishing shots for establishing scenes, wide shots for showing the subject in relation to its surroundings and setting up interactions with its surroundings, medium shots to show body language or to supplement dialogue, and close-ups that highlight key facial features. We're going to move on to how you take all this information and go from a script into telling your story. So I'm going to pull up a chapter that's mostly dialogue that I try to make interesting just with my paneling and what we just learned. So stage 17. Show it. Wait, sorry. Hold up. This isn't even the right. Oh, here we go. Okay, the sun rising with a corner store. An open window is made. Obvious it's Zach's bedroom. Zach wakes up and looks at his phone. There's a bunch of messages left by Trey asking him to play Battleseeker he missed. So, first off, the sun rising with the corner store, an open window is made. Obvious it's Zach's bedroom. I do an establishing shot with a square panel. I don't know why I used the square panel here. I should have used the full panel now I think about it. Maybe I just didn't want to draw more buildings or put in more buildings. I don't know. But this was enough information for me. It's really cool for establishing shots too, though. You can put in Easter eggs, like Jenkins Grocery. The character's name is Zach Jenkins, so it kind of hints that he owns the grocery store or his family owns the grocery store. You can put in little things like that. In the script, I just have the sun is rising from the corner store and an open window is made, and it's obvious it's Zach's bedroom. I didn't have this clock beeping as I pan in slowly to his bedroom and reveal his character. But I decided to do that just to have the visual flow of the story feel more natural as you travel into the window, into his bedroom, and you see the clock, and then it reveals into this giant wide shot of his bedroom, and you see kind of hints at his character through the elements in the bedroom. And before I go deeper into that, I want to talk a bit about panel flow. So there's something I like to call the visual flow roller coaster. And basically, you want to set up your scenes where you have a bunch of smaller panels lead up to a big reveal panel. And then you dip back down with these smaller panels, big reveal panel, and you just repeat this over and over while you're doing your storyboarding to create visual interests. And that's all paneling and flow is. It's making your story read in a way that keeps your viewers interested. So all these highs and lows and highs and lows are what helps with that. Going back to this chapter in the script, you can see I set that up with these this big reveal, smaller panels, big reveal. I go back to smaller panels again. This is a medium-sized panel or a square panel. but it's broken down by the dialogue, so it feels mundane like the smaller panels, and it feels less significant. And in the same way, I go through that by having him transition in the scene of walking down the stairs. And again, it's a smaller panel, and then a big reveal, a wide shot of this kitchen and the whole family. And in the script, it goes, Zach makes his way downstairs and hears his brother arguing with his grandpa. He pours himself cereal and starts to eat. You can, now I wrote out those actions, actually have it happening in the background during this dialogue. So even though he's pouring the cereal and all that, it's not important it's just kind of like background noise to supplement the dialogue to show, oh, it's another morning. Oh, his parents are arguing. It's not a big deal. It happens all the time. And I convey that through kind of his nonchalant expression here of his older brother. Mm. And yeah, I feel like that kind of explains how you make a script that isn't necessarily interesting and full of drama, but you create drama with the visual roller coaster, as I mentioned earlier. Um, Now let's actually talk about action scenes, because those are already packed with action and drama and visual interest. But how do you actually go about in creating it, right? Actually, for this part, let's use Clip Studio Paint. I think I have the chapter open. Oh yeah, here we go. So the thing I love about Clip Studio Paint EX is it has a page management function, and as you storyboard, you can just keep adding pages on the left side here, and you have a really good idea of your layout. But when you open a page, you can just draw right on it. You can switch between them. It saves automatically. And yeah, it's just a really useful tool that I started using. All right, so for this chapter, I have an establishing shot, or I say a wide shot of them eating at the kitchen table. I immediately go to a smaller panel for a smaller action. He's poking his peas, and then another small panel. He seems kind of bored or uninterested. This seems like a quiet family dinner, and then it goes into this flashback. And I use black borders for flashback. That's something I did back when I did manga. I don't know if that's really popular with WEBTOON, but that's what I do. You also see some of this dialogue is blacked out. That's just because I was making dialogue in Photoshop a while back for this chapter, so it does not translate well into my Clip Studio files. But don't worry about it. Dialogue's not important here. I'm just gonna talk about the paneling. So yeah, I'm using this to kind of set the mood. And again, with that visual flow roller coaster, I have all these rectangular panels you see on the left here, and I try to break it up with these smaller square panels. And then in this scene here, I put the characters in the foreground and then put the main character in the background, and I open it up into this big wide shot of him again. And that just creates visual interest. I was talking a lot about having variety with your rectangular panels and your smaller panels. I wasn't talking too much about creating visual interest with shots though, and I think this is a good example with the characters in the foreground and then throwing him in the background and then immediately flipping it over and having him the center of attention again. A thing I love doing to show time passing that was really popular in it's like Western comics I read that I saw less in manga is having a still setting shot but having your character move through it. I noticed, yeah, not a lot of manga did that, but comics did it all the time. Like in this scene, in this bottom panel here, you see him at the top of the stairs, and then there's a flashback, and then he walks by, and that's kind of creates this solemn mood of time passing by, and I thought it was really cool. Technique you can use, and I'm gonna keep moving forward. A bit about creating more visual interest with your panel variety. Here I have 3 smaller vertical panels for a flashback he has. Usually I try to avoid panels this size though, because WEBTOON's a format where all the information's on this tiny phone and this tiny screen, and you don't want to make your reader squint all the time trying to figure out what's happening in your comic. But because I worked in manga for so long, and I do plan to print ePRO someday, or through self-publishing or whatever, I work in this way to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, anyways, we're gonna quickly move into this action scene that I did. I think it was 2 updates ago. I do a scene transition with the little smaller panels as it bleeds through the skyline, or it bleeds in through the sky, and it goes victory. Zilong defeated Knives, and then I go into this big reveal of this larger panel. Again, that roller coaster of smaller panels into larger panels. And I do a establishing shot to show they're on a bridge, and it's this part of the update is going to be about these 2 characters facing off against each other, or I guess him beating the crap out of him. And immediately from this establishing shot, I go back into the repetitiveness of the rectangular panels. I do try to keep visual interest though with these double close-ups, but then I go into a wide shot, back into the double close-up, and again into a wide shot. And talking a bit about the wide shots again, they're great for showing a character's, the medium shot. They're great for showing characters' body language. Here he is waving by because he's about to leave, and he's kind of yelling after him. You see his hands up against his mouth. And then I have this close up of him being pissed off at this guy, or yelling at him, or mocking him, making fun of him. And you'll notice during these 2 pages, I have a lot of the rectangle panels going on, and that creates this sense of mundaneness, I guess, or static feeling in the reader's head. And that's why I throw in this double vertical all of a sudden to kind of communicate, oh no, shit's about to go down, maybe these 2 are about to fight. And surely enough, I go into this wide shot of them charging at each other. And the wide shot's there to remind the reader that they are going to fight on a bridge. And also, something I kind of want to say it's like a cheap trick, but it's kind of a no-brainer, is when you start doing action shots, you just put a slight angle on all your panels, and suddenly everything's super exaggerated and exciting, and there's eye movement. So action scenes come very naturally to me, but I'll try to explain best I can what's going on when I'm thinking about them. I think directing eye flow is a key thing, of course. So here I have the character punching this way. Punching this way. Obviously directed at the green-haired character. Immediately I flip the camera around and I show him dodging the punch. I have these action lines kind of trying to communicate he's dodging this way. And then again I flip the camera around immediately and have him charging back at this other guy. Now all this camera flipping is totally fine as long as your readers can understand what's happening. I know for a lot of dialogue scenes, and I guess non-action scenes in general, you don't want to be constantly flipping your camera, because suddenly like one character's on this side, one character's on the other side, over and over and over, and it gets kind of confusing. For action scenes, it's kind of okay to do that, just to make things interesting and make things seem exciting. That's why it's always great to have an editor to go over your layouts or your storyboarding and be like, yo, this doesn't make sense. Can you like redraw this? So yeah, lots of action, lots of flipping, all that nonsense. Here you can see I get kind of creative with the panels I use, with the double vertical here and like the super angled diagonal lines. Another thing you want to avoid when you do action scenes is repeating the same camera angle too often. When I did this scene, it actually bugged me a little that I repeated this view of this character so quickly to each other. I thought about redrawing one of the panels just so that wouldn't happen, but I think I just got lazy or time constraints. I don't know. I did not do that. But that's something you want to look out for and to avoid when you do action scenes. And again, we are still going with that visual roller coaster of this larger panel you see on the left here, and then 3 rectangular smaller ones. Again, reveal into this kick he's about to do that he dodges, and I have a close-up because I want to show the expression of the character as he's dodging his attack. And he has his expression kind of reacting to his. I'm sorry there's not a lot of narrative context. I don't want to go too much into writing what they're actually saying. And so when you really want to have a scene make a huge impact, it's all about build up. And I'm going to be saying this over and over, but the visual roller coaster, sorry. You want to be building up your scene with all these smaller panels. So here I have this rectangle panel, and then this square panel, and he's winding up his punch. This is like the impact shot. It's a big deal, but it's actually building up to another shot that's an even bigger deal, and that's this full panel of this character getting hit, and he like smashes through the bridge, down this waterfall, into the water below. And building up scenes like this is just all about controlling the types of shots you use to create a sense of stability, and then gradually using your skills to create a shot that's more heightened with your panel sizes and your types of shots. But immediately after this big epic scene, to keep things interesting visually, I go into these smaller, more intimate scenes of him kicking off the rope and diving down towards him, and him getting up from the water. And then I do this character reveal. So again, I'm just constantly pushing that variety. Yeah, a saying I really like to use is variety is the spice of life, and it really is. And I try to put that in, especially in my action scenes. So after all this, we have another wide shot, and that's because this part here was actually the end of one of my chapter updates. I break up my WEBTOON into a series of parts because, you know, updating once a week is a lot of work, so I can only put out so much. So this new scene helps kind of remind the reader who from last week, they'll be like, oh, what was happening in the story again? Oh yeah, these two were fighting on water, and there's like rocks around them for some reason. I don't know. So the action scene continues. Here you see I am using a lot of rectangular panels, and as an artist, I'm afraid that starts to get boring, right? So that's why I throw in this overhead shot, just to keep visual interest. it's not there because the top of their heads are important or anything. It's just when you play with, if you're out of options to change your panel sizes like I am here with the 4 rectangle panels, you can just play with the camera angle to keep that visual interest. Now obviously I'm out of ideas, you know. I did 4 rectangles, I did an overhead shot. I'm like, shit, what else could I do? I go and do this really strong angled panel of the double split of them still fighting. And that's just me really trying to keep the excitement up in this long action sequence. I do a close-up of him winding up a punch, and then a close-up of his expression reacting to the punch to build up this next moment, which is important to the fight narratively. He's like feinting and dodging. He's feigning a punch, and he's dodging something that's not going to be there, and that's a big deal. And then I again do a close up because of his facial reaction. He's like, "Oh, it was a feint. I dodged nothing." And then he's about to wind up his punch and likely finish him off. And up until this point, you think this is about to build up to a really big moment. But I decide to turn it into a comedic build up instead. So all this time I was doing all these crazy diagonal angles and crazy close-ups and all that. I suddenly turn it into this really boringly angled wide shot of just them standing side by side, and he just jabs him and punches him in the face, and then it's kind of funny in that way instead of this big epic Dragon Ball Z ending. And with that, I kind of want to talk about just planning your updates and kind of moving away from visual flow. I'll talk a bit about narrative flow. So because you're kind of pressured to update once a week when you do a webtoon, just to keep your readers interested and your subscribers, to remind your subscribers you exist, I try to pack as much of an entertaining package into my updates as possible. So with each update, I try to make my readers laugh. I want them to feel something, like resonating themes, physical action or emotional drama, and then a bit of mystery and intrigue, like cliffhangers leading into what might happen next. I'm going to talk more about this in my latest update of ePRO here. Alright, stage 19 difference. This is when I started coloring ePRO more consistently, so it's time to get it down. As mentioned earlier, a great way to show time passing is keeping the same panel size or even the same environment. So here I have a time-lapse montage of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There's a bit of a joke going on there, how this character is crushing on this one and just serving him cookies and muffins and stuff. So that's a laugh, you know, I'm putting in the humor. It pans out into this wide shot of the school, and most of this chapter is actually dialogue. So to spice it up, I kind of put in this physical, I won't say physical action or drama, of him tripping, and then he gets caught by his friend who says hi to him. I could have just as easily done this scene in a way where his friend ran up and tapped him on the shoulder and said hi. But instead, I chose to have this bit of action, just to like have that bit of excitement or fun. And then, you know, you get a bit of laugh out of it. You see his expression as he grabs him from his backpack. He's like, huh. And there's, again, it kind of dulls back into mostly dialogue between these two. I have this awkward moment here, again, to add some humor, to drive that dull feeling away from my readers. Again, I have this reveal of another character, kind of clapping sarcastically, making fun of them for having this romance moment. And then for that mystery and intrigue at the end of this chapter, I have a character that I had not shown for a while, kind of looking over at these main characters interacting and making a comment on what they're doing. And that kind of implies she might be in the next chapter, or implies of her importance in what might happen narratively to these guys in the next update. Uh, yeah, so I feel like that kind of pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about. Uh, yeah, I think I'm good here. Maybe we can move on to questions.
Okay. We have a lot. We have a lot, lots and lots and lots of questions. We'll try to get through as many as possible. All right, let's
All right.
start. How do you determine how much white space to put in between panels when it comes to pacing? Yours look very similar. How do you decide where to go with that?
Okay, this is a very WEBTOON exclusive question. I wish I had more expertise in the matter. Um, I think the way people use white space in WEBTOON is just to give breathing room between important scenes or to give transition between two scenes. Like, let's say we were talking a lot about smaller panels and panel sizing. I would use it, yeah, just to give breathing room between two scenes that seem like they wouldn't bleed into each other immediately, or even use it for transitions from like one setting to another.
So do you ever see yourself using the kind of like more spaced out panels in your style, or is it just not applicable for this work at all?
I won't. Okay, I really want to publish ePRO in print
Mm,
someday, or I hope to
yeah.
anyway. And that's why I don't have the long white
Mm,
space breaking and breathing room for any of
yeah.
my panels, because it's formatted per page. If I
Mm,
did format ePRO specifically to WEBTOON, I would definitely use it, just because it's such a
yeah.
useful way to create this sense of like a gap between your scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems a thing that's also very different between like shonen manga and like shoujo manga, where you have more white space in the shoujo manga style, and yours is more in that other direction. So I think that's very interesting to
Yeah.
see too. All right.
Yeah. I actually want to talk a bit about yeah, like the more mood driven and slow and solemn scenes you want to do, I think white space is great for just slowing down
Mm,
the pacing and like giving you that moment of ethereal feeling. And that's why it's so much more common, or white space is seen so much more in shoujos and dramas. And that makes a
mm,
lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I guess. When storyboarding and thinking about dialogue and looking at your script, how much dialogue is too much dialogue in a panel when it comes to your style?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. Actually, I had to learn this the hard way. Back when I did my first manga, um, I kept putting way too much dialogue in a lot of my scenes. I think having roughly one, or like even like I think maximum three speech bubbles in one panel.
Hmm.
I do any more than that, it starts feeling like information overload, or it feels like they're just ranting on and on and on, and that gets your reader really uninterested really quickly. So you want even scenes that have lots of sentences, you want to create paragraphs, like
Mm,
this scene here where he's as like two things, but I still break it up into two paragraphs so it doesn't feel too long and congested.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you
Also
also
feel like
Also,
go
oh
ahead? Go
sorry.
ahead.
You want to have as little dialogue in your panels as possible, like per panel. Like general rule of thumb, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah. How much does the digital aspect of publishing your comic this way have to do with that as well? You know, it's like if you look into shonen manga, you oftentimes have a lot of text on one page, but because it's a small phone, you kind of have to not do that.
I'm sorry,
I
what do you mean?
so you said that it has to be like not so many, not so much text in one panel, as
Yeah,
as little as possible. But if you look into shonen manga, sometimes there's like a lot of text. But
really.
because you're in the webtoon format, or you're publishing on webtoon, the
Mhm.
text gets really small, for example. Do you consider that
Oh,
as well?
yeah. Actually, the text size I use now, I feel like, is a little too small for the Webtoon format. But
Mm.
if I go any bigger than what I have now, I feel like it'll be too big for print format. So I'm trying to
Oh,
sit in
okay.
this like happy space that's like the best of two worlds.
Hmm.
But yeah, general rule of thumb, you want it to just feel uncongested. And on a phone, that's really hard if you're going from print. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? Um, how do you decide? You talked about the roller coaster of small panels, big panels. Um, when you have the other shape panels, how do you decide how to do that? Like when you slant the edges, or when you have them be bigger or the full size of a page? How do you decide the panel shape?
So for me, a lot of that is just experience and instinct. But usually you want, let's say like this character's punching this way, you want to slant it this way because there's more space over here and less space here. So your reader automatically starts reading the action going from left to right. And
Mm,
that's kind of how you direct that. But, you know, alternatively here, I slanted it this way, even though this character is charging downwards at him. So there's no like definitive guidelines on how you slant your panels or how you put your angles. It's just a matter of you being able to fit the information you want in the panel and making it clear to the reader what's happening is most
mm,
important. If you
okay.
aren't able to use a certain panel size or angle or whatever and still effectively communicate what's happening in the action scene, I recommend you just like stick to simpler panels you're more comfortable with until you are able to set up scenes that are super elaborate with really weird panel sizes. But I think the true goal you want to go with is being able to create any scene with any panel size, because then that way you can always take advantage of the visual roller coaster flow and do whatever you want.
Mm. Could you recommend any like anime, manga, webtoon series that is really great with action shots or sequences of comics? Panels, sorry.
Um, Honestly, not specifically. I feel like almost all shonen manga these days know how to do their action scenes really well. I mean, I guess that's why they're working for Shonen Jump, right? Like they know how to
Yeah.
actually choreograph the action scenes. I personally grew up with Naruto and Bleach, but I feel like modern shonens now, like My Hero Academia or anything like that, they have just as good paneling in terms of action scenes. And if you're looking to learn from them, that's great. Webtoon wise, I actually don't read any action webtoons, so I can't outright recommend anything in particular, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
Okay. Just a quick in between. What's your usual canvas size and panel size, respectively? Panel size is probably difficult.
Um, my go-to panel size, or like the pixel, or
Yeah, that's the question. I suppose it's difficult but start with canvas size is probably a good way.
canvas size I go with. Actually, that's a good question. Hold up. Let me
I
open a
think it's at
template.
the is it at the top?
Oh, is it? Oh yeah, I know how
Is
this
it?
works. 2000, sorry, 1575 by 2250 pixels.
Okay. Pixels.
That's really big, but it doesn't matter how big you work because at the end of the day, if you upload it to WEBTOON, it's 800 pixels wide no matter what.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like working big just because I can print it later and the quality's still good. And also, there's no disadvantage to working from a bigger size other than if your computer can't handle it.
Yeah. True. Okay, thank you for that. Let's keep going. So you have a lot of characters in certain scenes. We had the scene with the school, I think, and you are drawing essentially all of the characters and backgrounds as well. Um, how do you choose which background characters to draw and how detailed to draw them?
Oh, this is a good question actually. I know a lot of artists, especially me when I started out, I had a difficult time choosing that hierarchy on deciding which characters are important to render and which aren't. At the end of the day, all that matters is your main characters. Honestly, I feel like background characters are only important if, as an artist, you kind of feel lazy if you don't render them. I actually found this awesome brush on the Clip Studio Paint assets community thing. Yeah, I just started using crowd brushes, and they are freaking amazing. Let's see, get this one to work just to show you. Like I downloaded this one for free, and it's just people walking, passing by. No, there's this guy here. These guys sitting. There's this awesome one of adults. Oh, that froze a bit. Yeah. So like, even if you have to draw your background characters, Clip Studio has so many amazing tools now that help make the process really easy. Now, how you decide on how detailed you want to make your characters? Yeah, general rule of thumb: only the main characters matter. Let me pull up the establishing scene of the school real quick. Like this scene right here, almost all these characters are from just the Clip Studio paintbrush, and I could have just as easily made them like heads with bodies and maybe a bit of hair, and that's it. And then the color just kind of communicates that they're different people. As long as you're conveying enough information that it's a crowd of people, you really shouldn't go into too much detail with them at all.
Okay. Yeah, those brushes are really nice. Um, so you have a lot of different angles in a lot of different shots to match your panels. Do you have any tricks that you use, especially for the difficult angles, that you can share for
Oh,
your characters?
hmm. I've been drawing a long time, so I don't think, yeah, I don't really have too much trouble with drawing figures these days. I'm trying to think what I would say if I first started drawing though. Um,
How did you
obviously,
practice?
oh, how do I practice? Don't be
Angle.
afraid to draw angles that you're not familiar with. I notice a lot of people obviously prefer drawing one angle or drawing the famous, super good looking 3/4 face. But if you just go out of your way to approach off angles and weird camera tilts, more and more, and it's just practice if you keep doing it over and over. I'm sorry I couldn't give you a more like concise tip on how to approach them. Obviously, with anything, references help, but I feel like a lot of people may use 3D models now. Those weren't available back when I started drawing, but now I notice, especially Clip Studio, if you have certain versions, there's 3D models you can rely on to use as reference to draw all these weird angles. You can also, Google images online too. But I just want to say not to use 3D models too much, because then it starts feeling like a crutch, and you rely on them all the time when you do weird angles. But
Hmm.
yeah, honestly, it's just practice and not being afraid to do them, or yeah, don't stick with what you're comfortable with, I guess.
Yeah, that's probably a scary part for a lot of artists to go there.
Yeah,
Or you're just like, nah, I don't care. I'm just gonna try this.
yeah, just be brave. Honestly, uh, if you're not gonna be willing to like make ugly art, then you're not gonna get a lot of out of your practice. Because then you're just drawing the same thing you're familiar with over and over again, right?
Yeah, I guess. How much time does it take you usually to complete a page? Probably hard to tell, but
Mm, yeah, I think on average about 1 to 2 hours, I want to say. Obviously, depending on the page, some are more simpler than others. But yeah, it takes me 1 to 2 hours to complete a page.
is that like complete with color and line art, everything?
Maybe non-clean color. Maybe add on another hour with color, or like another 30 minutes of color. Yeah.
You
For a
also
long
had
time, I
your
was
script. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, for a long time, I was timing myself on how long it took me to do pages, so I would plan out my workload for the week. And yeah, it felt like it took me an hour to 2 hours to do a page. But I
Mm.
also do my storyboarding process in one go, so that's different as well, and I don't time that. So this is like me basically cleaning up lines and cleaning up my storyboard and coloring it and everything. Oh
Okay,
wait, that
okay.
probably doesn't include dialogue either, so that's a whole other thing. So let's
Do
say
you
let's say three to
store?
four hours.
Okay, 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Do you storyboard like one page at a time, or do you storyboard like multiple pages at a time, like just to get the flow?
Ideally, you want to storyboard a giant chunk at a time. When
Hmm.
I write a script, I try to storyboard the entire script before I start cleaning up the pages and doing everything.
Mm. Oh,
Obviously, if you have a really strict update schedule, like the once a week, and you're not getting paid for it, it's hard to keep up with that. But it's just ideal because then you have a better sense of the overall flow of your update rather than just these little chunks.
okay. How long does the script take you usually?
Uh, so writing, obviously, I'm not formally trained in writing. I treat writing really loosely. My script is often really messy. Like I'll change dialogue all the time. It'll
Mm.
take me, but if I really sat down and really wanted to punch out a script for one chapter update, probably take me anywhere between 3 to 4 hours, I believe. Yeah.
Mm.
But the thing with writing is you're always jotting down ideas on the fly.
Hmm.
So it's more about rearranging all these notes you have compiled into a proper structure.
Hmm. Yeah. How often does the while you're storyboarding from your script, how often does the content change after the fact?
Oh, all the time. And that's why I don't think I could ever work like as a writer for another artist because I probably want to change things on the fly all the time and would drive them crazy. So it's really convenient that I'm just writing for myself because yeah, I'll be drawing something and be like, wait, this doesn't flow very well, or like, oh, I want to add this scene, it'll make it more interesting, and I change it all the time.
Okay. We are roughly at the end of the session already. So just any final tips that you could give to people who want to get into drawing action stories and trying to bring their stories to paper or digital in this case?
Just, yeah, I'm gonna say it again. Variety. Variety is the spice of life. Um, no matter what you're doing, as long as you're changing the types of shots you're using and the size of the panels you're using over and over and over, you're creating visual interest. And that's the dream, just constant visual interest for your readers so they don't get bored looking at anything.
Cool. Very good. Thank you so much for this very, very informative session and answering so many questions. That was really great to hear. So thank you very much for this. Before we go, don't forget to follow Drake and check out his webtoon ePRO. Stick around for our special giveaway. You will find the link in the chat, and you can enter the giveaway throughout the commercial break. For more details, check out the giveaway link and let the moderator know if you have any questions. We also have many fun videos and tips and tricks during the commercial break, so stick around during those. And our next session will be on an expressive cast with Grave Reaper, and it will start at 4 p.m. PDT. And Grave will go over how her characters came to be and what can inspire a design. So thank you very much for sticking around and for all your questions. See you soon.